Cairo, the city of 1,000 minarets, stands as a testament to the enduring power of human ingenuity and cultural exchange. Its storied past has been shaped by the converging forces of ancient civilizations, from pharaonic Egypt to Islamic caliphates. As we embark on this journey through the ages, the whispers of Cairo's forgotten histories await, ready to be unearthed. The land that would eventually become Cairo was then a mere outpost, a small settlement nestled between the Nile's eastern bank and the towering Mokattam Hills. This ancient terrain, where the river's waters slowed and deposited their nutrient-rich cargo, gave rise to a fertile alluvial plain, perfect for agriculture and human habitation. It was during this epoch that the first farmers began to cultivate the Nile's floodplain, planting crops such as emmer wheat and barley, which would eventually become staples of the Egyptian diet. These early agriculturalists, likely migrants from the Levant or Mesopotamia, brought with them new technologies, including the wheel and domesticated animals, which revolutionized the region's economy and paved the way for the growth of complex societies. One of the earliest known settlements in the Cairo area was Merimda Beni Salama, a small village situated on the western edge of the Nile Delta. Excavations at this site have uncovered the remains of simple mud brick houses, granaries, and tools made from flint and copper, providing a glimpse into the daily lives of these ancient farmers. As the population grew, so too did the complexity of their social structures, with the emergence of local leaders, trade networks, and eventually the first fledgling states. To the south, in the region known as Upper Egypt, the process of state formation was already underway. The kingdom of Hierakonpolis, with its capital at Nekhen, had risen to prominence around 3200 BCE, marking the beginning of the proto-dynastic period. This era saw the development of a more sophisticated system of government, with the introduction of hieroglyphic writing, a standardized system of weights and measures, and the construction of elaborate tombs for the ruling elite. As the centuries passed, the influence of Hierakonpolis spread northward, eventually reaching the region that would become Cairo. The city's strategic location, at the apex of the Nile Delta, made it an attractive hub for trade and commerce, with merchants coming from as far afield as Mesopotamia and the Levant to exchange goods such as grains, oils, and precious metals. It was here, in this fertile crescent, that the seeds of a great civilization were sown, waiting to be nurtured by the waters of the Nile and the ingenuity of its people. The unification of Upper and Lower Egypt around 3100 BCE, under the first pharaoh, Narmer, marked a significant turning point in the region's history. This newfound unity allowed for the creation of a more centralized state, with a powerful bureaucracy, a standing army, and a system of taxation that would fund grand architectural projects, including the construction of temples, tombs, and eventually the mighty pyramids. As the unified Egyptian state continued to flourish under the rule of Narmer's successors, the city that would eventually become Cairo remained a relatively minor settlement, with the focus of power and culture still centered in the southern regions of Upper Egypt. However, the Nile's annual floods and the resulting deposit of nutrient-rich silt ensured that the area remained an attractive location for agriculture and trade. The pharaohs of the First Dynasty, who ruled from circa 3100 to 2613 BCE, oversaw the construction of a series of royal tombs at Abydos and Saqqara, which would eventually become important centers of worship and pilgrimage. One of the most notable pharaohs of this period was Den, who ruled from circa 2950 to 2900 BCE. During his reign, Den launched a series of military campaigns against the Nubians to the south and the Bedouin tribes to the east, securing Egypt's borders and establishing trade relationships with neighboring regions. The wealth and power that flowed into Egypt as a result of these campaigns helped to fuel the growth of a sophisticated bureaucratic system, with scribes, priests, and officials playing increasingly important roles in the administration of the state. As the Old Kingdom period dawned, circa 2613 BCE, the city of Memphis, located just south of modern-day Cairo, emerged as a major center of power and culture. The pharaohs of this period, including Djoser, Sneferu, and Khufu, oversaw the construction of some of Egypt's most iconic architectural achievements, including the Step Pyramid at Saqqara and the Great Pyramid at Giza. These monumental structures, which required the labor of thousands of skilled workers, helped to solidify the pharaoh's claims to divine authority and ensured the continuation of a stable and prosperous state. The growth of Memphis as a major urban center also had a profound impact on the development of the region that would eventually become Cairo. As trade and commerce flourished in the city, merchants and travelers from all over the ancient world began to arrive, bringing with them exotic goods, new technologies, and innovative ideas. The presence of these outsiders helped to stimulate the growth of a vibrant cultural scene, with artists, writers, and musicians drawing inspiration from the diverse influences that surrounded them. Despite the many advances that took place during this period, the Old Kingdom was not without its challenges. A series of severe droughts and famines, which struck Egypt in the mid-25th century BCE, placed a significant strain on the state's resources and helped to erode the power of the pharaohs. As the authority of the central government began to wane, regional governors and nobles started to assert their own independence, leading to a period of fragmentation and instability that would last for centuries. As the Old Kingdom's power waned, the regional governors and nobles who had begun to assert their independence during the period of fragmentation and instability started to consolidate their own authority. One such noble was Khedi I, a governor of the 9th nome of Upper Egypt, who ruled from circa 2181 to 2170 BCE. Khedi's reign marked the beginning of the Heracleopolitan period, during which a number of powerful nobles and governors vied for control of Egypt. The city that would eventually become Cairo remained a relatively minor settlement during this time, although its strategic location at the apex of the Nile Delta continued to make it an attractive hub for trade and commerce. The Heracleopolitan period was characterized by a series of complex and often conflicting alliances between the various nobles and governors who ruled over different regions of Egypt. One of the most notable of these nobles was Intef II, a member of the Theban dynasty who ruled from circa 2112 to 2063 BCE. Intef's reign saw a significant increase in the power and influence of the Theban region, which would eventually become a major force in Egyptian politics. Meanwhile, the city of Memphis, which had been the capital of the Old Kingdom, continued to decline in importance, its former glory slowly being eclipsed by the rising stars of Thebes and Heracleopolis. As the Heracleopolitan period drew to a close, Egypt was on the brink of a new era of unity and prosperity. The Theban dynasty, which had been gaining power for centuries, was poised to take control of the entire country, marking the beginning of the Middle Kingdom period. This era would see the rise of some of Egypt's most famous pharaohs, including Senusret III and Amoza I, who would oversee a series of military campaigns, architectural projects, and cultural achievements that would help to cement Egypt's position as one of the greatest civilizations of the ancient world. The Middle Kingdom period also saw significant developments in the region that would eventually become Cairo. The city of Ichtati, which was located near modern-day Lisht, became an important center of power and culture during this time, serving as the capital of Egypt under the pharaohs of the 12th dynasty. Although Ichtati was not directly connected to the city that would eventually become Cairo, its proximity to the Nile Delta and its importance as a hub of trade and commerce helped to lay the groundwork for the future growth and development of the region. One of the most notable pharaohs of the Middle Kingdom period was Senusret III, who ruled from circa 1878 to 1843 BCE. Senusret's reign saw a series of significant military campaigns against the Nubians and other neighboring regions, which helped to secure Egypt's borders and establish trade relationships with other countries. The region's fertile soil and abundant water supply made it an ideal place for agriculture, with crops such as grains, flax, and papyrus being grown in abundance. The presence of these agricultural resources, combined with the region's importance as a center of trade and commerce, helped to lay the groundwork for the future growth and development of the city that would eventually become Cairo. The reign of Amoza I, who ruled from circa 1570 to 1546 BCE, marked a significant turning point in the history of Egypt. Amoza's military campaigns against the Hyksos, a group of Asiatic invaders who had taken control of Lower Egypt, helped to drive the foreigners out of the country and reunify Egypt under a single ruler. The expulsion of the Hyksos also marked the beginning of the New Kingdom period, which would see the rise of some of Egypt's most famous pharaohs, including Hatshepsut, Thutmose III, and Ramses II. The region's importance as a center of agriculture and trade helped to fuel the growth of a sophisticated economy, with merchants and traders coming from all over the ancient world to exchange goods such as grains, oils, and precious metals. The New Kingdom period also saw significant developments in the region's architecture and infrastructure. The construction of temples, tombs, and other monumental buildings helped to solidify the power and influence of the pharaohs, while the development of a sophisticated system of roads and canals facilitated trade and commerce throughout the region. As the New Kingdom period progressed, the city that would eventually become Cairo continued to grow in importance as a hub of trade and commerce. The pharaohs of this era, including Hatshepsut, Thutmose III, and Ramses II, oversaw a series of ambitious architectural projects, including the construction of temples, tombs, and other monumental buildings. One notable example is the Temple of Karnak at Luxor, which was expanded and renovated during this period. Although these developments were not directly connected to the city that would eventually become Cairo, they helped to solidify Egypt's position as a major power in the ancient world and facilitated trade and cultural exchange throughout the region. The reign of Ramses II, who ruled from circa 1279 to 1213 BCE, was particularly significant for the region. During his rule, Egypt's borders were expanded and trade relationships were established with neighboring countries, including the Hittites and the Mycenaeans. The city of Pi-Ramses, which was built during this period, became an important center of power and culture in the Nile Delta. As the New Kingdom period drew to a close, Egypt entered a period of decline and instability. The pharaohs of the Third Intermediate period, who ruled from circa 1069 to 664 BCE, struggled to maintain control over the country, and the region was plagued by internal conflicts and external threats. The region's strategic location at the apex of the Nile Delta made it an ideal place for merchants and traders to exchange goods, including grains, oils, and precious metals. The arrival of the Assyrians in the 7th century BCE marked a significant turning point in the history of Egypt. In 664 BCE, the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal conquered Egypt, and the country became a vassal state of the Assyrian Empire. Although this period was marked by instability and conflict, it also saw significant cultural and economic developments. The city of Sais, which was located in the Nile Delta, became an important center of power and culture during this period, and its rulers, including Psamtik I, played a key role in shaping the country's future. The rise of the Saite dynasty, which ruled from circa 64 to 525 BCE, marked a significant turning point in the history of Egypt. During this period, the country experienced a resurgence of culture and learning, and the city that would eventually become Cairo continued to grow in importance as a hub of trade and commerce. The construction of temples, tombs, and other monumental buildings during this period helped to solidify the power and influence of the Saite pharaohs and facilitated trade and cultural exchange throughout the region. The reign of Psamtik I, who ruled from circa 664 to 610 BCE, was particularly significant for the region. As the Saite dynasty continued to rule Egypt, the city that would eventually become Cairo remained a vital hub of trade and commerce. During this period, the Phoenicians and Greeks established trade relationships with the Egyptians, introducing new technologies, cultural practices, and architectural styles that would later influence the development of Cairo. The reign of Amasis II, who ruled from circa 570 to 526 BCE, was marked by significant economic and cultural developments. He encouraged Greek merchants to settle in Egypt, particularly in the city of Naucrates, which became a major center of trade and culture. The Greeks introduced their own architectural styles, including the use of marble and stone, which would later influence the construction of buildings in Cairo. Amasis II also strengthened Egypt's military, which helped to secure the country's borders and maintain its position as a major power in the ancient world. In 525 BCE, the Persian Empire, under the rule of Cambyses II, conquered Egypt, marking the beginning of the Achaemenid period. The Persians established a new administration in Egypt, with the city of Memphis serving as the capital. Although the city that would eventually become Cairo was not directly affected by the Persian conquest, the region's trade and commerce continued to thrive. The Persians encouraged trade with other parts of their empire, including the Indus Valley and Mesopotamia, which helped to introduce new goods, technologies, and cultural practices to Egypt. During the Achaemenid period, the city of Babylon became an important center of trade and culture, with merchants from all over the ancient world, including Egypt, coming to exchange goods and ideas. The Persians also introduced their own system of government, including the use of satraps, or regional governors, who were responsible for collecting taxes, maintaining order, and upholding the authority of the Persian king. Although the Achaemenid period was marked by significant cultural and economic developments, it ultimately came to an end with the conquest of Egypt by Alexander the Great in 332 BCE. The arrival of Alexander the Great marked a significant turning point in the history of Egypt, including the city that would eventually become Cairo. Alexander's conquest of Egypt led to the establishment of a new dynasty, the Ptolemaic dynasty, which ruled Egypt for over 3 centuries. The Ptolemies established a new capital, Alexandria, which became one of the most important cities in the ancient world, rivaling Babylon and Rome in terms of its cultural, economic, and intellectual significance. Although the city that would eventually become Cairo was not directly affected by the Ptolemaic conquest, the region's trade and commerce continued to thrive, with merchants from all over the Mediterranean coming to exchange goods and ideas. The Ptolemies introduced a new system of government, including the use of a powerful centralized administration, which helped to maintain order and collect taxes. They also encouraged the development of Greek culture, including the establishment of theaters, libraries, and philosophical schools. The city of Alexandria became a major center of learning, with scholars from all over the ancient world coming to study mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy. The Ptolemies also invested heavily in the construction of new buildings, including temples, palaces, and public monuments, which helped to establish Alexandria as one of the most beautiful and impressive cities in the ancient world. As the Ptolemaic dynasty continued to rule Egypt, the city of Alexandria flourished as a center of culture, learning, and trade. The Ptolemies invested heavily in the construction of new buildings, including the famous Library of Alexandria, which became a repository of knowledge from all over the ancient world. Scholars such as Eratosthenes, who accurately measured the circumference of the earth, and Archimedes, who made significant contributions to mathematics and engineering, were drawn to the city's vibrant intellectual scene. The Ptolemies also encouraged the development of Greek culture, including the establishment of theaters, where plays by famous authors such as Menander and Euripides were performed. Meanwhile, the city that would eventually become Cairo remained an important center of trade and commerce, with merchants from all over the Mediterranean coming to exchange goods such as grains, spices, and textiles. The Nile River, which flowed through the heart of Egypt, played a crucial role in the transportation of these goods, and the city's strategic location at the apex of the Nile Delta made it an ideal hub for trade. As the Ptolemaic dynasty continued to rule, they invested in the construction of new infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and canals, which helped to facilitate trade and commerce throughout the region. One of the most significant events of this period was the reign of Ptolemy III Euergetes, who ruled Egypt from 246 to 221 BCE. During his reign, Ptolemy III launched a series of successful military campaigns against the Seleucid Empire, which had been established by one of Alexander's other generals, and expanded Egypt's borders into Syria and Asia Minor. He also invested heavily in the construction of new buildings and public works, including the famous Temple of Edfu, which was dedicated to the god Horus. As the Ptolemaic dynasty continued to rule, they faced increasing challenges from internal conflicts and external threats. One of the most significant challenges came from the rise of the Roman Empire, which had begun to expand its territories into the eastern Mediterranean. In 1668 BCE, the Roman consul Lucius Aemilius Paulus defeated the Macedonian king Perseus at the Battle of Pydna, marking the beginning of Roman dominance in the region. The Ptolemies were forced to navigate a complex web of alliances and rivalries with the Romans, who eventually became the dominant power in the Mediterranean. As the Roman Empire continued to expand its territories, the Ptolemies found themselves increasingly entangled in a web of alliances and rivalries with their powerful neighbors. In 51 BCE, the Roman general Pompey arrived in Alexandria, seeking refuge after his defeat by Julius Caesar at the Battle of Pharsalus. However, upon his arrival, he was met with hostility by the young Ptolemy XIII, who had recently ascended to the throne and was determined to assert his independence from Rome. Pompey's subsequent murder on the shores of Alexandria marked a significant turning point in the history of the Ptolemies, as it led to a period of intense conflict between Egypt and Rome. The Roman civil war that followed Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE drew Egypt into its vortex, with both Mark Antony and Octavian vying for control of the kingdom. In 41 BCE, Mark Antony formed an alliance with Cleopatra VII, who would become one of the most powerful women in the ancient world, and together they launched a series of military campaigns against their rivals. In 31 BCE, Octavian's forces defeated Mark Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium, marking the beginning of the Ptolemaic dynasty. The following year, Octavian's army invaded Egypt, and after a brief but intense campaign, Alexandria fell to the Romans. Cleopatra took her own life, reportedly by allowing a poisonous asp to bite her, rather than submit to the humiliation of being paraded as a captive in Octavian's triumphal procession. With the death of Cleopatra, the Ptolemaic dynasty came to an end, and Egypt became a Roman province under the rule of Octavian, now known as Augustus Caesar. The city that would eventually become Cairo continued to thrive as a center of trade and commerce, with the Romans investing heavily in the construction of new infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and canals. In 30 BCE, the Roman prefect Gaius Cornelius Gallus established a new administrative system for Egypt, which included the creation of a network of towns and cities along the Nile River. One of the most significant developments during this period was the growth of Christianity in Egypt. The Apostle Mark is said to have arrived in Alexandria in the 1st century CE, where he founded one of the earliest Christian communities in the world. The city's strategic location at the crossroads of the Mediterranean made it an important center for the spread of Christianity, with missionaries and traders carrying the new faith to all corners of the empire. As the Roman Empire continued to evolve, Egypt remained an important province, with the city that would eventually become Cairo playing a significant role in the regional economy. In 1115 CE, the Roman Emperor Trajan launched a series of military campaigns against the Parthian Empire, which had been threatening Roman interests in the region. The war effort required significant resources, and Egypt was called upon to provide troops, supplies, and equipment for the Roman army. The 2nd century CE saw a period of relative peace and prosperity in Egypt, with the Roman emperors investing heavily in the construction of new buildings, roads, and public works. The city that would eventually become Cairo continued to grow and develop, with a diverse population of Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, and other nationalities living and working together. However, this period of stability was not destined to last, as the Roman Empire faced increasing challenges from internal conflicts and external threats. The city that would eventually become Cairo played an important role in the war effort, with its strategic location at the crossroads of the Mediterranean making it a crucial hub for the transportation of goods and personnel. As the 3rd century CE dawned, Egypt faced significant challenges, including inflation, corruption, and external threats from rival powers. The Roman Empire was beginning to show signs of strain, and the city that would eventually become Cairo was not immune to these developments. In 250 CE, the Roman Emperor Decius launched a series of persecutions against Christians, which had a significant impact on the Christian community in Egypt. The mid-3rd century CE saw a period of intense conflict in Egypt, with rival claimants to the throne vying for power and the Roman Empire struggling to maintain control. In 260 CE, the Roman Emperor Gallienus faced a significant challenge from the Palmyrene Empire, which had been established by the Queen Zenobia and was threatening Roman interest in the region. As the 3rd century CE drew to a close, Egypt faced significant challenges, including economic stagnation, corruption, and external threats from rival powers. However, despite these challenges, the city continued to thrive as a center of trade and commerce, with its strategic location at the crossroads of the Mediterranean making it an important hub for the exchange of goods and ideas. In 284 CE, the Roman Emperor Diocletian launched a series of reforms aimed at stabilizing the empire and restoring its former glory. However, despite these efforts, the Roman Empire continued to face significant challenges, including internal conflicts and external threats from rival powers. As the 4th century CE dawned, Egypt faced a new challenge in the form of Christianity, which was spreading rapidly throughout the empire. The city that would eventually become Cairo played an important role in the development of Christianity in Egypt, with its strategic location making it a crucial hub for the spread of the faith. In 313 CE, the Roman Emperor Constantine issued the Edict of Milan, which granted toleration to Christians and marked a significant turning point in the history of the faith. The 4th century CE saw a period of relative peace and prosperity in Egypt, with the city that would eventually become Cairo continuing to thrive as a center of trade and commerce. In 395 CE, the Roman Empire was divided into two parts, with Egypt becoming part of the Eastern Roman Empire, also known as the Byzantine Empire. However, despite its importance, the city faced significant challenges, including corruption, inflation, and external threats from rival powers. In 451 CE, the Council of Chalcedon was held in Constantinople, which marked a significant turning point in the history of Christianity and had a profound impact on the development of the faith in Egypt. The city that would eventually become Cairo continued to thrive as a center of trade and commerce, but its importance was beginning to wane. In 476 CE, the Western Roman Empire came to an end, marking a significant turning point in world history. The 6th century CE saw a period of relative peace and prosperity in Egypt, with the city that would eventually become Cairo continuing to play an important role in the regional economy. In 541 CE, the plague of Justinian broke out in Constantinople, which had a devastating impact on the population of Egypt and marked a significant turning point in the history of the region. As the plague of Justinian continued to ravage the Byzantine Empire, Egypt's economy began to decline, and the city that would eventually become Cairo suffered significantly. The empire's trade networks were disrupted, and the flow of goods and people into the region slowed dramatically. In 618 CE, the Persian Empire, under the rule of Khosrow II, invaded Egypt, further destabilizing the region. The Persians captured Alexandria, the capital of Egypt, and the city that would eventually become Cairo was left vulnerable to attack. In 629 CE, the Byzantine Empire, under the leadership of Emperor Heraclius, launched a successful counterattack against the Persians, recapturing Egypt and restoring Byzantine control over the region. However, the damage had already been done, and the city that would eventually become Cairo never fully recovered from the devastation wrought by the plague and the Persian invasion. In 639 CE, the Arab conquest of Egypt began, led by the renowned general Amr ibn al-As. The Arabs swept through the region, capturing key cities and towns, including Alexandria and Babylon, a fortified town located near the modern-day site of Cairo. The Byzantine Empire, weakened by years of conflict and internal strife, was unable to withstand the Arab onslaught. In 641 CE, the Arabs captured Alexandria, marking the end of Byzantine rule in Egypt. The city that would eventually become Cairo, now known as Fustat, began to take shape, with the Arabs establishing a new capital city near the site of modern-day Cairo. Amr ibn al-As founded the Mosque of Amr, one of the oldest mosques in Africa, which became a center of Islamic learning and culture. Over the next several centuries, Fustat grew into a thriving metropolis, attracting scholars, merchants, and traders from across the Islamic world. The city became a hub of intellectual and cultural activity, with the famous House of Wisdom, a center of translation and scholarship, established during the reign of Caliph al-Ma'mun in the 9th century. In 969 CE, the Fatimid dynasty, a Shia Islamic caliphate, conquered Egypt and established a new capital city, Al-Qahira, which would eventually become modern-day Cairo. The Fatimids built a new city with grand mosques, palaces, and markets, and Fustat was eventually absorbed into the larger urban complex. The Fatimid period marked the beginning of Cairo's rise to prominence as a center of Islamic culture and learning. The city became a magnet for scholars, poets, and intellectuals, including the famous philosopher and physician Ibn Sina, also known as Avicenna. During this time, Cairo's iconic landmarks, such as the Mosque of Al-Azhar and the Mosque of Sultan Hassan, were built, showcasing the city's rich architectural heritage. As the centuries passed, Cairo continued to grow and evolve, with various dynasties and empires vying for control over the city. The Ayyubid dynasty, founded by Saladin in the 12th century, played a significant role in shaping Cairo's history, as did the Mamluk Sultanate, which ruled Egypt from the 13th to the 16th century. In 1517 CE, the Ottoman Empire, under the leadership of Selim I, conquered Egypt and incorporated Cairo into the empire. The Ottomans brought significant administrative and architectural changes to the city, including the construction of new mosques, schools, and public buildings. Throughout the Ottoman period, Cairo continued to thrive as a center of commerce, culture, and learning. The city's famous bazaars, such as the Khan el-Khalili, became major centers of trade, attracting merchants from across the Middle East and beyond. As the 19th century dawned, Cairo began to undergo significant transformations, driven by the forces of modernization and colonialism. The construction of the Suez Canal in 1869 CE, which connected the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea, brought new economic opportunities to the city, but also introduced foreign influences that would shape Cairo's development for centuries to come. In 1882 CE, British forces occupied Egypt, marking the beginning of a period of colonial rule that would last until 1922. During this time, Cairo underwent significant urban planning and development, with the construction of new roads, bridges, and public buildings. As the 20th century progressed, Cairo continued to grow and evolve, driven by the forces of nationalism, modernization, and urbanization. The city became a hub of Arab nationalism, with leaders such as Gamal Abdel Nasser and Anwar el-Sadat shaping Egypt's destiny from the capital. Today, Cairo is a sprawling metropolis of over 20 million people, a city of ancient mosques and modern skyscrapers, of bustling bazaars and quiet gardens. The city's rich history and cultural heritage continue to inspire and fascinate visitors from around the world. As they explore the narrow streets of Islamic Cairo, visit the pyramids of Giza, or simply soak up the vibrant atmosphere of this incredible city. From its humble beginnings as a small fortress town to its current status as a thriving metropolis, Cairo has left an indelible mark on the course of history. Its rich cultural heritage, shaped by the interactions of countless cultures and empires, continues to inspire and fascinate us to this day. Thank you for joining me throughout this historical journey. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that, to understand the present, we must first understand the past.